Board of Directors meeting for October 2nd, 2019. We're in the Wyndham Town Council chambers and it's 6:30 p.m. Mr. Howell?
Kate Bricks.
Present.
Eric Colby.
Present.
Jenny Cummings.
Present.
Don Dillon. Marge Devoni.
Here.
Pete Hensler.
Here.
Anna Keeney. Kate Levier. Scott McLean.
Okay. Will you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any adjustments to the agenda tonight?
There are no adjustments to the agenda.
Okay. We now have an opportunity for public input, the opportunity for the public to comment on items which are not on the agenda. Stand up there, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alyssa Messer. I'm a Raymond resident. I know some of you. I would like to take the opportunity before I bring tonight's concern to say thank you for the great RES playground. It's a huge success. I know several of you were there for our opening. The kids are loving it. The teachers are noticing a lot of running and playing for the kids, so it is fabulous. And I just want to say thank you so much for working with us to make that happen over 6 years. It was a great project to invest in, so thank you. I didn't know I'd be here this morning when I woke up. But some events yesterday afternoon catapulted me of the urgency to stand before you with a very deep concern on behalf of the RSU regarding our school buses. We had a child in Raymond yesterday that was nearly hit by a car passing a school bus, and the police are involved. Summonses have been issued. It's a very serious matter. I witnessed it approximately 2 weeks prior on the very same road, on the very same location, a very dangerous situation. I have heard some chattering happening on social media websites that this is seems to be a universal concern in different areas of Wyndham and Raymond. And so I had started to get involved. As I've worked with you before, you know I like to do my homework before I come involved and know who's involved with what, how should we handle it, what are our options, and get clarity versus just secondhand information. But after what happened yesterday, I thought, oh my gosh, if we continue to wait and I do my homework for a month, it may be too late. I mean, we've only been in school in this one particular road. We've only been in school 1 month and it's happened twice at that same location. So we can't wait. Let's do our homework together. I want to tell you what I know right now and what we're doing in Raymond. It will be a little bit different because this is a multifaceted thing, right? So how we see it is there are multiple agencies involved to solve this problem. The RSU is only one of them. So physical buses, that's our responsibility here, RSU. The route, a particular route that this road is on, this incident happened, I'm going to say that we really feel we need to evaluate that road. It's the Egypt Road in Raymond. If you're not familiar with the Egypt Road, it's a very windy road. It is also a very hilly road. There are numerous blind spots that do not meet the regulations of the main how many miles per hour per distance stop for sightline seen for buses. It's just not there. There's also a sign safety situation. That's the town of Raymond main DOT, because that's a DOT road that we're working with them. Speed and traffic studies, possibly town of Raymond, DOT, because it's a DOT road. I spoke with the sheriff today who was dealing with the situation that happened from yesterday, and I said on another note I'd like to talk with you about what can we do. So those are their issues. But for your information, I have spoken personally with our town representative in Raymond, which is Jessica Fay, to the state, and who provided me valuable information and guidance concerning my issue. And I'm preparing a letter for Senator Diamond, who represents both Raymond and Wyndham, to the state. He also is involved with transportation, so that's great because he'll have a lot of problem-solving things that we can do. Today I spoke with the Cumberland County Sheriff Deputy regarding this issue. Because we don't have our own police department in Raymond, so the sheriff is who we go to. I would highly advise Wyndham Police Department be brought in for the Wyndham bus routes and so forth, and see if something can be worked out to support, because I got great support today in conversation. She's going to be talking directly with her boss about some possibilities where the police could help us in some of those two situations of 302 That's where my kiddos get on. Terrible. Blowing right by the buses, and even passing from behind the buses around on 302, that straightaway between Raymond Beach and Casco. I'm here tonight, admittedly not having done all that homework, but also telling you we need to move on this as a community of Windham-Raymond. I know that there's a lot of people willing to help. We want to do this in the right and proper way and not inundate bus garages and administration with 25 people needing the same thing. So hopefully we can launch here together and how to best successfully do this. We can learn together as we go and problem solve and feed each other information as we find and ask these questions. So what does it mean for the school board? I guess very particularly tonight, I think we're looking for two things. One, the RSU bus fleet to have those extended stop arm gates. So when you look at a bus right now, we're getting gates on the front. It's my understanding that that's going to be the law next year, that all the buses have to have that front, like right in front of the bus driver, so the kiddos have to walk around. I'm not talking about that when I'm talking along, the little bus sign that comes out with the flashing lights. So it's, imagine like the cattle gates, those great big long ones. It extends into the middle of the other lane with a flashing light and has the capability of having a camera on it. Why is that important? Because the last thing a bus driver should be doing in a circumstance of a car passing is worrying about getting that license plate number. They're trying to make sure everybody's safe. And we have extraordinary bus drivers in our community. We are so fortunate that they love our kids like us, and they're devastated when this stuff happens. I mean, can you imagine driving a bus and having one of your kiddos hit? You live with that the rest of your life, even if it's nothing that you did. Like this is not acceptable, and they know that, and we're trying to help figure that out. So the one concern I heard about those arms in my research and discussion with various people so far is, what do we do about dual lining our buses? I can only speak to Raymond. I'm sorry, I haven't watched the process in the other schools. Maybe you guys can speak to that better. But we dual line our buses 2 rows and stagger them at the JSMS and RES. So the concern was those great big gates coming out. How are we going to do that? I called the manufacturer of those arms today. They're manufactured in North Carolina. And I said, listen, what can we do about this? They said, we've realized that it's a problem. We now make those arms with a switch gate off so that when they're in the school parking lot and loading the kids, you do not have to have that come out. And you wouldn't be worried because you're all amongst the company that's providing safety in that group. So I think that's a non-issue. I haven't heard any other concerns about those arms. I've only heard anything we can add to our bus to slow people down, anything we can add to capture these cars that are irresponsibly blowing by, and bring attention. And the police officer told me today a really interesting thing. She said, you take a look at that arm coming into your lane. Now all of a sudden something's right in your face, not the flashing light of the stop sign, but what's your natural reaction as a driver is to veer off the road to the right. So now the driver's going to go off the road, right, and stay away from the school bus. The only problem that comes is when you have the 2-sided pickup, which is the problem on the particular road last night. And that leads me to the second point that I'm going to ask of you as our RSU 14 is I'd like to specifically address the bus route on Egypt Road. It is now a one-way route. Okay, so she comes down Egypt Road, ends up on the North Raymond Road, and comes back around a different road on the other side of town. It has not been that way. That is a fairly recent change in the last years. It used to be, and has always been, to my understanding and what I've been able to research, the bus driver would go up the up the Egypt Road. All the kids to the right would get on her bus. She'd turn the bus around. There's like a subdivision area right there on the gray line. She'd turn around safely, come down. All the kids on the left side of the Egypt Road would board the bus. It's a very dangerous road. Okay, we've got to have a discussion about this. It's just we can't let it go on without discussing what are our options for that. 80% of our kids in the state of Maine ride a school bus. Nationally, over 800 kids a year are killed with bus safety issues. We cannot become one of those statistics. I think that the advancements technology made with the cameras, the bus arms, the bottom line to me is if we know better, we have to do better. And I think the cost of these things are a reality that we have to face. I'm willing to help you. That's what got me engaged in this conversation of research in the first place. In my research for the playground and stuff, there are some safety grants and some safety things that we can apply for. So that can be a discussion point for us to see if there are outside resources that we could help cover this. When you're talking about a child's life, we've just got to do everything we can. And that's the bottom line, is asking ourselves, an accident may happen still, but we have to ask ourselves, did we do everything we could to prevent that accident happening? We know that there's an issue at this particular road. We know that those extended arms statistically stop people, even change behaviors. Like we just have the cell phone thing happen. All of our behaviors are changing, right? Hopefully. So this is what we're saying is, can we do better? The answer is yes. If an accident were to happen today, like if it would have happened yesterday, we have to ask ourselves, did we do everything we could to prevent that? And I'm afraid to say today the answer to that's no. So I want to make the answer yes with you. I want to help be a part of the solution of this and problem solving and feeding information, meeting with our officials on the multi-tiered thing. Like I talked about, the police, the state officials, the DOT, and so forth. But I'd really love to engage in a future conversation about this and see how we can work together to make this a safer scenario.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Anyone else?
I feel like I'm probably going to cover the same subject. My name's Aaron Piper. I'm a resident of Wyndham. I'm father of two kids, two beautiful kids. My oldest is 5 to start kindergarten this year. And the school bus issue has been a big issue, and there's been more awareness, I think, because of a lot of social media. I started and created Wyndham, Maine Community Board on Facebook. I know it's rough around the edges, and it's just getting started, but there was a lot of complaints, so I contacted. There's a bunch of news articles posted in the RSU, posted in the group from RSU 57 as well as Yarmouth. I reached out to both the transportation directors and the principals and the superintendents. RSU 57 reached out with a really great response, as well as Yarmouth. Yarmouth, they had put in cameras, and they're going to start doing that. I think the cost was $2,000 or $3,000 for the buses. I know I spoke with Chris a little shortly after I had gotten all this information. He said that it was already in the planning board's budget to equip all the buses with cameras, and all the newer buses that were within 10 years of age was going to be about $500 per bus, and then all the older buses were going to be retrofitted with the entire system. So I mean, that was covered. So I was like, okay, well, that's covered. The stop arms, which was installed in Waterboro in 57, I think they said it was about $2,000 per bus. The arms extend up to 6 feet, and when the new laws with like the cell phones and stuff like that pass, the hands-free, a bunch of other laws pass as well, especially with related to school buses. In the past, if somebody had blown by a school bus and the bus driver didn't catch the license plate, but somebody got on camera, they wouldn't be able to ticket or fine those offenders until just recently. First offense is $250. Second offense, you can lose your license up to 30 days. I think at that same time they also passed another amendment to make it $500 first offense. Second offense, 60 days, suspension of your license. So a lot of things have changed. They can also use those cameras that are on the buses to ticket offenders, whereas anything else with a radar or stop sign, like just regular stoplights, if there's cameras hooked up, or if there's one of those portable radars, if there's a camera hooked up to that, they can't ticket offenders. But they made an exception for bus drivers. Recently, there was a post by a gentleman who caught a van passing the school bus while his daughter was getting on. The reason why they were able to ticket the offenders and summons them is because the bus driver was able to confirm. So I think the officer told this gentleman that he can't do anything further until it's been confirmed with the bus driver or the transportation director. And once the bus driver can confirm it, then they can proceed. So it has to be directly, the camera that's catching these license plate has to be directly attached to the bus and the stoplights. It can't be a pedestrian, it can't be anybody else or somebody behind him. It has to be confirmed by the bus driver to be able to ticket the offenders. So I started reaching out, figuring out what can I do. I'd like to fundraise, and I reached out to the PTA. I wanted to reach out to the school board to see how I can go about this. I'm not a nonprofit. This is the first time I've set up even started to do something like this, so I don't know how to collect donations. I know I have several different businesses and private individuals that are willing to donate to get money started. I know that the school board has already budgeted for the cameras. I'd like to be able to fundraise. I'd like to go until December and try to collect as much as I can, and shoot a goal for $5,000 to at least cover at least 2 of the stop arms and the installation of the stop arms, and maybe a little bit extra to cover any kind of maintenance that is unforeseen right now that we don't know of. And when I was speaking with Chris, these would basically go on buses that would be high traffic areas or high offensive areas, which it sounds like would be Egypt Road. I've been reached out to by several different people in the last couple of weeks from Raymond and Wyndham, all interested in helping and trying to figure it out. I mean, my concern was Wyndham. I wasn't really thinking out towards Raymond, but it is our RSU 14 covers Raymond as well. So I don't know if our buses are in the same pool, or if there's, you got Wyndham in one pool and you got Raymond in another. So, if I'm willing to run point and do a lot of the legwork and divvy out the responsibilities if somebody would like to help. But I'm kind of here looking for guidance and assistance on how to set this up and move forward. I've had businesses offered products for raffles or for auctions, and like I said, this is my first time doing something like this. I don't have an event established or anything like that, but I'd like to be able to, tell these businesses, if you're donating, you'll be able to write this off. You'll be able to do something, and maybe in the end, post something, thank you to all the businesses and private donations if they'd like to be named or put on a list of donators, and do this, and maybe if some way we can set it up where as we're donating, if we hit that limit, we can start installing on one bus, and then if we hit the limit again and keep going. I mean, I'd like to do 5,000, it would cover 2, but if we can go above that, I'd love that as well. And then hopefully we could see how this works out. If we can get the donations to cover 1 or 2 of these this year, that when you guys are planning the new budget next year, that you can say, these are the pros and cons. Did this really work? What should we do? Because there was a lot of other suggestions thrown out. Well, why doesn't the bus pull in the middle of the road? Well, you can't. That's illegal. I've seen. I don't know if it was a meme or a real post or an article, but there's actually there's one with those spikes, the spike, so it reaches out, a spike mat, so it's actually attached to the bus, so instead of the arm going out 6 feet, the spike mat goes out 6 feet. And I was like, well, if you have family on the side of the road or car, I was like, I don't, like I said, I don't know if that was a meme or something like that, but the stop arm, I think when they also passed the law about the texting and the cameras, they extended the law of, I think it was 3 to 4 feet you're allowed to have the stop arm on the bus. They extended that to 6 feet. And then I spoke with the director, the transportation director at RSU 57 again today through an email, and he said that you can purchase a mechanism to turn that off, like she had spoken about. And I know that was one of Chris's concerns, is staggering the buses. How do we park them? Well, you can. I don't know how much more it is, but you can actually purchase a mechanism to go with that to be able to turn that off. I think they purchased theirs out of a facility in Kennebunk, not in Connecticut. So I was quoted, he said it roughly $2,000. So I don't know, I'll follow up more, but I'm just kind of looking for guidance and support. I want to do it, on behalf of the school system, but I also would like to make sure that I'm not stepping on any toes and everything's kosher.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank both of you for coming out tonight, and actually for the concerns that you've shared. I shared with a couple of you. This really hit home for me in a meeting in Scarborough a couple weeks ago, and following a Scarborough bus up Route 1 and watching 6 to 7 cars at a time go through that bus's lights, and it became definitely a priority for us. And I don't know why this fall things seem to be so different, that we have so many people that seem to be just entirely disregarding the actions of our bus drivers. And the other part that's worrisome is that we want our bus drivers focusing in on the kids, making sure the kids are crossing safely, not do I need to catch the next license plate. So I think something that we're doing on our end is Mr. Kelly and I are actually meeting tomorrow morning at 8 and looking at what it is that we can do with existing budget, because I think you're absolutely right, and I think it's the same thing that 57 did. They have 50 buses, but they were able to equip, I think, 17 buses of their fleet in those really high traffic areas, the most difficult spots where you've got multi lanes of traffic or their sight lines might not be as good, to try to address this. But again, looking budget wise, how do we do this in the future? But just so everyone's aware, it is one bus fleet. All the buses belong to RSU 14, and the buses are shuttled back and forth based upon needs of students and what the routes look like, and repairs and age of the fleet and all those other pieces. And we're looking to get those buses that
and I would like to assist in trying to collect some donations to go towards this, so it's not just, like I said, I understand that the school budget's already there, it's already set in stone, and I don't want it to cannibalize from any department or any program, and that's why I like to, at least get a couple of quick this year, so that way you guys can evaluate how well did this work, how many buses still need them, and how many can we afford? I mean, do we need to do the whole fleet, or do we need to do just 5 or 10 more buses? And regarding the social media with the group, if you guys find any way that you'd like to share or post, or if there's something that you want to bring awareness to, something like this, or ask for help or assistance, or just get feedback on, please feel free to reach out. I'm really trying to get more of the community involved and posting. I'm hoping that the more positive posts are in there, the more positive the group will become. And I'd like you guys to be able to utilize it, whether it's just an announcement and comments are turned off, or anything, or if you guys would rather send me something directly and I will post it for you. So that way no one on the board or no one from the school is directly attached to whatever is posted. I will do that for you if you'd like.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
And we will be getting back to you. Thank you. All right. Job for Maine's graduates. Hello.
Can I just do an introduction?
Sure. Sorry.
Jen, sorry. To step in front of you. RSU 14 has a number of different partnerships with Jobs for Maine Graduate, and Jobs for Maine Graduate has been a great partner for RSU 14. And we have 4 different positions across the RSU that are connected. And so we have some of those individuals here tonight who are going to share. So Jen and Carrie and Stella and Fernando are here as well. So they're going to share a little bit about their programs. And I didn't want to steal your thunder. Sorry, Jen.
Oh, no, you're not stealing any thunder, right? On a Wednesday evening. I have a little bit of thunder left. So thank you for having us and giving us this opportunity to showcase what we're doing at Windham in the high school. I'm the high school specialist. I'm Jen Dumont. This is my 3rd year at Windham. Before I was in Greenville. School boards are set up very differently in Greenville, so this is a little different. But I'm very excited about what our program has been able to accomplish over the last 3 years. I have I think I was looking today, I think I have more than 65 students in my programs, 3 freshman, sophomore groups, and 2 junior, senior groups. And they're supposed to be capped at 12, but I think I have 16 kids in each of those classes. So we're off to a great start this year. And having Fernando at the middle school has been an added bonus to me personally, like as a specialist at the high school, because it makes that transition year from middle school to high school so much more, the kids handle it much better when they come from a JMG program at the middle school to the high school directly. We kind of are that bridge for them, and we provide them with the support that makes that difficult year maybe a little bit easier. So I'm seeing that already, and Fernando's always only been there for 1 year. As well, teaming up with Carrie Kowalczyk, our Melmac JMG specialist, working with her provides us an opportunity to personalize career pathways for students like never before. So where I can help them discover what they might want to do, Carrie can help them get into the program that best suits their future desires, which is what JMG is all about. And as well, Lynette Hain, we also work very closely with her for our employer engagement outreach, which allows me to connect students individually with people in the community that do what they want to do. Like, for instance, this year I have a student who wants to be a mortician. Like, right? We're always going to need morticians. But Lynette has helped me. Like, I can give that student a job shadow with a mortician in our community. So just making those bridges and connections has been really, really wonderful. I'm very thankful for for all of them. And then now we have Stella Rich, who is our JMG high school completion specialist. So when kids just can't seem to make it in the mainstream education system, Stella works with kids from 16 to 24 who maybe didn't get their diploma but still want to graduate high school, get their GED, go to adult ed, and pursue those meaningful careers that we all want them to have. So I'm very happy to have Stella. We are working really closely together. And then I think we're the dream team. I guess Waterville is the only other district that has what we have. So I say they're our competition, right? Okay. No, they're all wonderful too. But I think that my students tell the JMG story better than I ever could. So without further ado, this is Jen Williamson. Come on up. She is our Career Association president, and I'll let her tell you that story of how that happened. But okay, you good? All right, thank you.
Hello, thank you for having us tonight. My name is Jen Williamson, and I'm a senior. JMG is an extremely valuable program, especially with the right teacher like Ms. Dumont. It teaches us important skills that are applicable to several aspects of our lives, like career-wise and personal. Through this program, we are provided with opportunities to prepare us for life after school and are able to strengthen our collaboration skills. One of my favorite units in JMG is the career unit because it gives us a better understanding of what to expect in regards jobs and provides us room to look into career interests. I reluctantly became a JMG student my sophomore year. I needed one more credit to be considered a sophomore, and I tried everything to get out of it, actually. It did not work. It was the only thing that fit in my schedule, so I had to stay. I did pretty much bare minimum. I exerted enough energy to meet and nothing beyond. Sometimes I didn't do certain assignments, but eventually, with Ms. Dumont's continuous support, I did warm up to the class quite a bit. I ended up returning the second year, my junior year, after I finished Health 2, and I even switched into a class that was grade level below me because I wanted to come back. I've received a ton of support and opportunities because of this program that I wouldn't have otherwise. Earlier this year, I was selected to go to CDC, and that was something I did not think I could do. Being here right now, speaking in front of you all, is not something I would normally ever do. This program has reinforced the importance of persistence and self-care in my life and has taught me things I can actually apply, like how to make a resume or go for a job interview. It is now my pleasure to introduce Junior JMG Representative Haley Moody.
All right. Hi, my name's Haley Moody. I am a JMG Junior Representative. I started JMG as a freshman. Taking the class has changed me in many ways. Most importantly, JMG has given me the constant school that I need to stay focused. It has given me tools to manage academics and athletics. We set goals and determine priorities in JMG and learn how to achieve them. The JMG curriculum provides a hands-on experience, which I love because even though it doesn't feel like we're doing work, we do so much. Miss Dumont has this way of making hard things fun. She's always there for support and advice. The JMG classroom gives us a safe place to talk things out and see things in a different way. I've learned so much about my interests, strong points, and even how to take my preserved weakness and make them my strengths. I am now a junior and I plan to be a police officer. It is awesome to have a class that will help me see this plan through. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I will now introduce Shea Parado, JMG Sophomore Representative.
Hi. Well, I'm Shea Parado, and I want to talk about my sophomore year experience. I didn't take this class my freshman year, which I greatly regret, and I think Ms. Dumont really wanted me to. Definitely pulled my leg. Sophomore year, since taking this class, has definitely been better than my freshman year experience, and that's because she helps students find their comfort zone and even go outside of it. Just like right here. And in JMG, we focus on foundational skills that help us navigate high school and even more so life. We're focusing on self-reflection this year, learning styles, personality types, study skills, and time management, which I could greatly use. And above all this, I'm making relationships. I'm in a class with freshmen and sophomores, and the sophomores in my class I don't know that well, so I've definitely built relationships with them so far this year. And also freshmen, which they're cool. They don't sit they don't sit at my table, so I don't really know. But I definitely believe that freshman year would have been a better experience had I had JMG and Miss Dumont's support. And I guess that's it. So I'll introduce JMG Career Association Vice President Cecil Ramsey to give some closing remarks.
Hi, I'm Cecil. I'm going to talk about why I feel JMG is important. JMG is a class I have taken personally for 3 years now, and it has a very significant part of my life so far. JMG is a class that really shows you the importance of being determined, confident, committed, positive, kind, and more. And honestly, if you had told me 3 years ago that I'd be standing here as the Career Associates Vice President, I probably would have laughed. Without JMG, many kids would not have learned many of the social, mental, and coping skills and more that JMG teaches. Career-related work is also very important in JMG, and it as well as guided me to figure out what I'd like to do later on in life. I want to be a luthier, and I wouldn't have thought about it if it wasn't from the help of Miss Dumont and the class itself. And so because of JMG, I have a plan for my future, and it includes me just becoming what I want to be. And as a leader, I would like to thank you all for having us here and letting us showcase our JMG program. And I'm also happy to know that the middle school also has the JMG program. And thank you. And I'd like to introduce Sean Yates.
Hello, my name is Sean Yates. I am an 8th grade JMG student at Wyndham Middle School, and I'm here today to tell you about my experiences with the middle school JMG program. One of my favorite aspects of the program is how it emphasizes teamwork and public speaking. Before JMG, I was terrible at public speaking and would get nervous whenever I spoke. In 6th grade, it got so bad that I would routinely freeze up during presentations. Now I can present things I'm passionate about much better due to my experience with JMG. I have a much more positive outlook on sharing out in front of the class, and JMG played no small role in that. It has helped me begin to realize my strengths, which I can utilize in future job opportunities, undeniably a skill that is valuable in the real world. I am not only a more effective communicator as a result of the program, but it has also taught me skills that will be valuable for years to come. Thank you for your time. I would now like to introduce our next speaker, Nevaeh Courier.
Hello, my name is Nevaeh Courier. I'm an 8th grade JMG student at Wyndham Middle School, and I'm here to tell you my story with JMG. In JMG, we learn skills that we can use in the real world. We learn things we need to know because we won't be in school forever. At some point, we will need to grow up and get a job. For example, we talk about how to fill out job applications, which is helpful because I will be able to get a job before school year ends, and I need to know how to do things like fill out a job application. We also learn about other things like debate, which is helpful because we need social skills in life in general and for any job. We did Cooking Matters during the last year. I liked it because our chef Kelsey taught us not only how to cook, but how to eat healthy, which is really useful because when you're older, you don't want to eat unhealthy forever. In conclusion, I'm very happy that I was picked to be in JMG, and I'm happy I got to stick with it. Thank you. I would now like to introduce Mr. Hinojosa.
Hello, everybody. I'm suiting all the representation. It's like, wow. Hello, my name is Fernando Hinojosa. I'm the JMG specialist at Wyndham Middle School, and I'd like to take today as an opportunity to a couple of things. I want to put some pieces together from the stories that we've shared, and I also want to tell you a little bit about my program, the middle school program. So let's zoom out for a second. Let's process everything that's just happened tonight so far as a group. So as was mentioned a couple of times, we have a couple of programs on our campus. We have 4 programs, in fact. The high school core JMG program, the middle school program, MELMAC, and high school completion program. And I just want to point out how anomalous that is. That only one other campus has that. Waterville has 4 such programs on their campus. That's pretty huge. It's pretty huge that we have that level of JMG partnership, that level of support. And in addition, by the way, JMG exists on 12 college campuses, which is kind of part of that JMG pipeline. I paint this picture because I really want to start by contextualizing the diverse catalog of support and work that's being done in all of these sites across several program models, middle school, high school, college. And let me do this by reading to you our JMG XYZ statement. Quote, JMG partners with public education and private businesses to offer results-driven solutions to ensure all Maine students, graduate, attain post-secondary credentials, and pursue meaningful careers. Okay. I promise there's a build-up here. What does that mean? Let's break that down. It means a couple of things. First, it means that we're getting Maine students ready for the workforce, essentially. That's what our mission is. It means that we're doing that with an approach that's characterized by partnerships with businesses and the community at large, a relationship-based approach, if you will. And especially if we want our students to engage in those meaningful careers, meaningful pursuits after they graduate, we're doing it in a way that's always authentic, always relevant to the needs and interests of those students, right? When you put all of these pieces together, this relationship-based, student-directed workforce development curriculum, what you get, this big picture, is that we're preparing our students not only to engage in meaningful careers, but to be leaders, to be advocates, to put it one way, to be those exceptionally employable people that we want them to be by virtue of being exceptional people in the first place. We do want our students to find gainful employment, of course, but I hope this sort of like subtext, this message in the background isn't lost. We're not just looking for our students to go on to be our very much needed, welders and police officers and educators and so on. We also want to produce responsible and integrated young adults that can go on and support our communities along the way, right? Anyway, that being said, let me tell you a little bit about my program. Let's zoom right back in. I just hope we keep that in mind as I talk about, or otherwise list kind of all of our successes this past year. So we're a program in its second year. In year 1, we designed and implemented a 3-year curriculum for grades 6 through 8 that leverages the unique set of resources we have on our site, relationships and kind of resources, things like that, towards guiding these students at our school to being those exceptional people. Throughout their 3 years in our program, our students are going to practice a variety of like social and communication skills, everything from like the nuts and bolts of how to introduce yourself, right, with GNAP, how to communicate professionally over email, very important. We see a lot of not well signed off emails, things like that, all the way up to those big job skills, creating resumes, searching for and applying for a job, interview skills. All of the things that are going to give our students the skills and experiences they'll need to just be confident taking that next step when they're ready. Our grade 6 and 7 students, as of this year, or year 1 and year 2, are also not only learning these skills, but again, just paying attention to that subtext that I don't think it's mentioned too often. They're learning that they have a future in the first place, right? They're learning that they can visualize now, not just our dream job, which is then the name of our class, Jobs for Maine's Graduates, but by extension, they're going to be reflecting on, okay, you have your dream job. Where do you want to live? What kind of people do you want to spend your life with? How are you going to make the most out of your money? What are your deepest held principles that will never, ever, ever change? This constant future-oriented perspective is, I think, a really extraordinary opportunity for our students to just take charge of that story that's normally being written for them in the background, to take charge and start writing that story themselves. Just looking at time. Anyway, grade 6 and 7 really hone in on this material, on the self-exploration units. While we emphasize within our program at the middle school our team focused paradigm. We really focus on having a really strong team that prioritizes cooperation and mutual growth. One such result of this culture, just to give a couple of pointers of things we've done in year 1, is an entirely class-directed community service research PBL, in which we, among other things, among other milestones, we had the opportunity to reach out and meet to a community partner, Deb Tangway, the director of the Gorham Food Pantry, to not just add to our research and let us interview her, but really make what we're doing feel a little bit more real. In addition, as mentioned by Nevea, Cooking Matters has been a pretty promising partner already from the start, helping us not only expose our students to those potential careers in the culinary arts, but also teaching those very real life skills. Eating healthy, the whys and hows. It's a bit of a it's along that path. Our grade 8 students, as in part of our middle school mission, are really starting to synthesize that self-understanding and direct it in pursuit of their own career interests. So by the time our students arrive at grade 8, they're beginning to embark on a variety of what we're going to call employer engagement opportunities to really go out in the community and explore, shadow a career, whatever makes sense for them. In addition to everything we do at our home base at the school, research on college and post-secondary pathways, job attainment and survival, career exploration research, reviewing paperwork, like fun stuff like W-4s and I-9s. That's a great lesson. Paychecks, banking, taxes, budgeting. Everything that we do in-house, we ground it not just in the classroom, but with our relationships in the community. So with those folks that come in or that we go to that make what we're learning be that much more real. As far as employer engagement opportunities in our first year, and certainly continuing, we continue to nurture and foster these relationships. WCYY had a rep that allowed us to take our 8th grade class to one of their facilities at One City Center. I'm excited because I really like this trip. And we talked with a couple of the real on-air DJs who they played some music, so they're on air still, and sound engineers and other staff, and just told us what their jobs are about, as we get to kind of pop in and explore. I gotta mention, when we crammed into their studios, we had 17, 18 students, and it was very intimate. Each studio was very wholesome, accidentally wholesome setting. It was really nice. Of course, we're setting up partnerships closer to home as well with the resources that make sense that we have available. The Wyndham Police Department were able to set up a couple of tours for students that are in our program who, at the middle school level, still sought to pursue that as a career interest. In addition to this, we continue to participate and have some really quality representation already by just having a year of a program in our middle school program at our statewide JMG events, like the Leadership Education Conference coming up pretty soon, in which students are selected as leaders of our program, and they go on essentially an overnight leadership intensive. We have Urban Adventure, where 8th graders are taking part of another overnight that's basically this really awesome, team building and / career scavenger hunt. Long story short, already we have so many resources, so many opportunities to introduce to our kids with this program at the middle school. Anyway, to sum up here, let me talk about some stuff we're striving for. We are clearly, I would hope, a student-centered program. We focus what we do on our students' needs and interests, but we're also, as part of our tagline, we're a results-driven company, right? JMG is student-centered, results-driven. What that means is that we continue to strive for improvement across all areas, right? We continue to ask the question, what's next, essentially. So I wanted to close here before we kind of expand again with just a couple of things that our particular program is going to be striving for in year 2 moving forward. Bridging. So bridging is one of the big ones that we want to hone in on. By which we mean developing our bridging opportunities is going to mean just formalizing that crossover that we have with the high school, with our other programs, with our 4 awesome anomalous, conglomeration of programs, putting our resources together to really give that students that head start. If we really want to. If our priority is to get our students ready for the high school, for instance, just makes a lot of sense to have mentorship opportunities, for example, set up for them so they have some connections to benefit from once they arrive at the high school. Summing some stuff here. It's quite a lot. And conversely, giving our high school students an opportunity, for instance, to serve as mentors can be an equally life-changing opportunity, as maybe some of us can attest. So layering our bridging opportunities, really increasing that overlap and expanding our employee outreach network really through our 4 sites, certainly through the middle school, partnering with big JMG partners like Bath Iron Works, Unum, and so on. I think we're ready to continue that growth of that network and continue to expand that high quality workforce development kind of curriculum and opportunities that we want to provide to our kids. That's kind of a lot. I feel like I'm rushed a little bit. So in conclusion, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing us to share our individual stories as well as kind of our program stories. And maybe just for me at least, really confirming that what we do, I guess, matters and continues to matter to all of us in this room. I suppose this would be a really good time to take some questions. It's not just for the middle school program, but for our programs at large, if there are any questions.
Yeah, I have a series of questions that are all kind of related, and so I'll start with you.
Yeah.
With the middle school program, how many students do you have capacity for?
We enroll about 45 or so on average.
About 45. And how are those students selected or identified?
Students are selected through a recruitment process in 6th grade that takes place in the first semester. What we do is basically identify through the support of like my selection committee students that might meet any of the barriers we have, on the JMG list of barriers. And we have discussions with teachers and kind of identify which kids might be the best fit. And once we have like a solid foundation of usually about 16 or so students who we're planning for, we do some interviews. So we reach out to family, we reach out to the folks at home, so it's very casual. And we just make sure that the program is understood by the 6th grade and there's buy-in from family wherever possible, as well as with the student. That way that students are going to benefit the most as if we increase the relationships that are taking part in their participation in the JMG program. But yes, it takes place in 6th grade, and we go from there.
And would the expectation be that once you're in 6th grade that you continue on through your senior year?
Correct. That's how we do it. It's a commitment. So once a student is enrolled in 6th grade, they carry through the 8th grade.
But if somebody doesn't get in 6th grade but wants to join later on with Jen, like how are those students identified?
They come to me and they say, I really would like to be part of JMG, and I say, well, let's make that happen.
Yeah.
And that's how I end up with overcapacity classes.
Yeah,
but that often happens actually. The beauty of it is that it can start in 6th grade and it can be that long of a relationship. It can be a 7-year relationship with us, and then go on to be an 11-year relationship with our college success specialist. So that continuum of support, that like it's happening, right? And so Jen's and all of my kids here today are an example of kids that I'm keeping. Like I'm not letting them go at any cost. They know they are with me. They are committed to the program, and we're going to see this through. And hopefully, their next step might be an in-Maine college where we have a JMG college success specialist, and so I get to hand over. But not only that, I follow them for a year, so they get like double whammy. Like I always say to my kids, I'm like, imagine taking me to college with you. I'm like, no, and then they're like, yeah, right? Like it creates like this awesome support net. We all of our kids struggle. The barriers that JMG puts forward. Any kid in that high school, I can find 5 or 6 barriers for. That's not the part that concerns me. It's the buy-in part. And if a kid comes to me and says, "I've heard about your program, I want in," I can overbook my classes for kids that want in.
That's great, because it sounds like a really great program. I know how valuable it is, so it begs the question, like, if we're starting at 6th grade, we're doing at Wyndham Middle School, what are we doing for our Raymond students? How can we?
Sure, if I can just add in here. So Jobs for Maine Graduates, which is part of Jobs for America's Graduates, it's a public-private partnership. It's basically a nonprofit organization. It's funded partially by the legislature, but then there's also a significant part that are private donors. JMG has been very, very good to RSU 14. It initially started with a core program and then moved on to a college career specialist, which is partially funded with MELMAC. And then Starting last year, Fernando's position was a grant. We got a phone call. Would you like to have a position at Wyndham Middle School? JMG reached out to us, and this year we pay a very minimal amount. Stella's position, which is looking at kids from 16 to 24, that's paid for by JMG for the next 3 to 5 years. So we've let JMG know that we're interested in a program for for Jordan Small. It's one of those things also is that they're limited on their funding end as far as what programs and numbers that they can support, but they know that we're very, very interested. But just for the public to be aware of, all 4 positions are provided by JMG to the district for less than a single full-time position that we may have in the budget. So they've been a very generous organization. I don't know if Deb Bouchard, who's here, is Deb, are you?
Yes,
I couldn't see you behind. Deb's our regional manager who helps us oversee the program, and but Craig Larrabee, who is the president of JMG, and then there's a 20-member board from across the state of Maine, and many of significant donors help make this happen for kids for barriers. And just I'm on the board for JMG, so I'm quite excited about the work that's being done for it as well. It has been the #1 Jobs for Merit graduate program, I think now 19 or 20 years running across the country, and the organization now is providing professional development in other states to help them garner the success. And the kids who go through a JMG program have a much, much better chance of graduating. Graduation percentage is higher, and then also initial earnings are a lot higher. For kids coming through in all segments of the population. It has been a fantastic partnership for us.
Yeah, I think we should see what we can do to get it into Jordan Small, because that way, as the kids are coming into high school, they're at an equal point. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
to all of you out there, you JMG people, thank you very much. It's hard to get up in front of a bunch of people on television, and we're old, so. But you did a great job. Except for okay, so now RSU 14 Community Connections.
Is it okay if I hang out up here and not behind the building?
Yes.
I'm going to pass this around just as a reminder of what the job description is. So, Director of Community Connections, we're technically in year 1.5. Just as a reminder, it started halfway through the year last year, so we're at like sort of 1.5 years right now. So I'm just going to go through like the big buckets of what I do, and it's really great that I'm right after all of them because I do a lot of similar things, but with the district perspective. So Fernando and Jen work with really small groups of students compared to what I can do with a whole district set. They go deeper and I can go wider. So that's really, really cool to have that right before I go and talk about this. So you'll see at the top that the overall goal of my position is really to just have more resources for students and to connect the community with the school more for that reason, and to make sure that whatever we're doing is beneficial to the students but also to the community, that it's not one-sided. And so when thinking about that, there's 4 main things that I'm working on last year and this year. ELOs, which I'll explain a little bit more. Definitely the capstone projects, mentoring programs, and then general career exploration. So ELOs stands for extended learning opportunities. So basically there's different definitions people use, but it's anything outside of a traditional classroom setting really falls into this. Things like school to work programs, internships, job shadows, some independent study classes for credit. So if you go and do horseback riding and your school allows you to get credit for it, that would be an ELO. So those are what ELOs generally are. So last year and this year, I'm really focusing on researching really well what is going on in the state. We just finished rewriting the Career and Education Development Standards. That has a bunch of steps that it's going through at the state, but the direction really looks like it's going to have a lot of focus on ELOs, on internships and job shadows and that kind of stuff. So we'll see if it stays that way after all of the revisions, but that's the way it's looking. But also just looking at what other schools are doing, where our gaps are in our programming. We have a lot of great programming, but where are the gaps in what students are getting? What opportunities do we have that we might be missing, or that would be really fantastic to give to more students, maybe at a younger age? What resources we have? We have a lot of resources related to career, making sure that students are getting those resources in as many ways as possible. And then lastly, looking at research and making sure that we don't fall into any of the fads. There's a lot of things that become a trend for a year or two and everyone jumps on, and then it's not really as effective or as useful as people think. So making sure we're not one of those groups that is like, oh, let's invest a lot of time and energy and money into something that just ends up fizzling out and isn't a really, really good thing. So that's a lot of what I'm doing now, is just having a lot of conversations with a lot of different people, both in our school district and with other schools and other places in the state, to just get a general idea of what things are looking like. And we're also doing some pilot things this year, some small things like helping students to get job shadows, helping them to set up their own internships, not for credit, but helping them to get them, doing a lot of evaluation of what things are working in different areas, and really being careful about which students we really push and help with these specific bigger ELO things, just to make sure that as we're dipping our toe into this area, we're being really thoughtful about it. And then we're thinking about what it would look like to have program leads for credit-bearing programs. Specifically, we're talking about school-to-work partnerships. We have CTE, which is fabulous, but we also have a number of students who would probably benefit from sort of a combination of what JMG does, which is a lot of job skills sorts of things, and actually working a job and figuring out what that would look like. We don't have a CTE in Portland and Westbrook don't have that offering. They have specific programs, but they don't have a school to work program. So thinking about whether that's something that we might want to try for next year. So doing research in that area. So that's overview of ELO stuff that's going on. And then I'm doing a lot of work with the senior capstone. If you look at the description of my job, it's actually like a little section within a little section, but it's the last year and this year and probably for the next few years, it will be a bigger piece of my work than it was originally intended, just because there's a lot of work that goes into it. The senior capstone has been really incredible. I know there are a lot of seniors who both had careers confirmed that they were going down the right path, and a lot of seniors who really understood that it was the wrong thing. And both of those are fantastic. So this year, when we're looking at the capstone, I'm really focusing on these 4 things of just making sure that we hit all of these pieces now that we have 1 year of figuring it out. And awareness, I think awareness is something that I only have to do a little bit of this year. Last year it was a really big deal, but people seem to know. I already have had dozens of seniors come into my office asking for help with their capstone, and we're less than a month into school. I already have articles that are going to start going into the paper about different capstones that are almost finished. So there's a lot of projects that are already underway or were completed this summer that are already going on. We already had our parent night for capstone. So there were 50 or 60 people at that who got all the information they needed right away at the beginning of the year. And there's a lot of excited students. There's a lot less terror about what is this thing that we have to do, and a lot more students who know that, all right, I had friends who were seniors last year, and they did this, and it was fine. And they're getting more excited about their options because they've heard of some of the unique things that people were able to do, and they know it doesn't just have to be sitting in the library for 30 hours getting things done. So that's great. We did a little evaluation already and looking at last year some of the pieces of how things worked and making some small changes that would make it easier for students to either understand what they were supposed to do or complete things the way that they needed to, just simplifying things. But this year will be another year to really think through what this looks like and what, especially the frustrations, where are the conflict points and how this is set up and what can we do in the future. We're not going to make big changes to the program for a while. We have to see how it functions the way it is, but to gather that information. And then this is a year to really start developing the way the capstone looks, to really start building a base of contacts. I have a bunch of people already that I know I can go to who will take a student to shadow, who will help a student in any way I ask them to, which is fantastic. But I will be continuing to build the breadth of what I have. I didn't have a mortician on speed dial that I could set her up with. But I now have a mortician who has said yes once, and so may say yes again. And then also, once again, simplifying structure and really figuring out how we're going to consistently communicate. I go into a lot of classrooms. I go into a lot of meetings, a lot of senior meetings. And so they hear from me often, but really this is a time I feel like this year to start putting together a plan to make sure there's consistency along the way and that students every year have all of the pieces they need. And I don't just forget one year to do these things that worked the year before. So really thinking about how things are communicated and making sure I have a plan for each year. And then the last thing, sustainability, especially when thinking about community contacts, that I know who's available, but I don't overuse any of them, because my community contacts, especially in Windham and Raymond, are not just used for capstone. They're used for middle school tours. They're used for coming in to speak in different classes. They're being asked to do a lot of different things, and so really thinking through how those people are used and how they feel appreciated. Even this year, last year there was no thank you note required. We kind of thought students would know to do that. This year we're saying, nope, that you have to do that before you're considered finished. Little things like that to make sure that not only are we not overusing people, but that they feel like what they're doing is appreciated. So that is overview of capstone. The mentoring program, and Fernando brought this up, how useful it is to have middle school to high school connection. And so that's what the mentoring program is. Last year, it was really very basic because it really didn't get started until January because my job didn't exist and I didn't know what things were happening. And so we were figuring it out in the fall. We ended up with about 8 mentoring pairs. I did just a few trainings to make sure they had enough information to do a decent job, but they also were students that were just agreeing to it halfway through the year when they already had a lot of other commitments, and it wasn't fair for me to expect a lot of additional things from them. So this year, it looks really, really different. We've already had 3 trainings. We had an after-school retreat where we did a lot of games. We had high ropes. We had all sorts of activities going on where they could meet their middle school person. They could have conversations, and their first one-on-one interaction is going to be nowhere near as awkward as last year's first one-on-one interaction. It's going to be a much better experience for all of them. They're also I'm getting weekly summaries. So last year I only had 8 kids to pay attention to. And so it was easy for me to just send an email out and say, hey, how's it going? Do you need help from me? I have 20 now and other things. So as it grows and you put things in place, so this year there's weekly summaries where I just send a survey out that asks all the same question as an email, but it's automatic. I get all of my responses, and if there's anything that's a red flag, I can reach out to them. And it's starting next week. So last year started in January. We're going to start with 11 pairs next week, and then there's 9 more pairs that are probably going to be mostly 6th graders who haven't yet been identified. So really excited about the way that the mentoring program is looking. Just a note about that, unless I get really, really good about protocols, which there's only so much I can do, it might be at capacity with the 20 pairs. For what I can do, but like Fernando talked about, I don't really work with his JMG students right now, so he could be somebody potentially who we could add mentoring pairs with his program, and he could take more of the reins on that. And there might be other people who can do more things to make it so we can expand. Solo, I can't expand. But we could if we look at some things creatively. And then right now, it is a Wyndham Middle School mentoring program because the high school students can just walk across the street for 20 minutes and then walk right back. And so I think in the future, I would really like to consider what we can do with Jordan Small. And that might not be a high school to middle school. It might be middle school to elementary school. It might need to look really different. But I don't want Jordan Small to be left out as we build some of these programs because they have the same needs as our students at Wyndham do. And then career exploration is the last bucket of things that I do. And this is mostly 6th through 10th. By 11th and 12th, I'm really just talking to them about immersion experiences, getting really deep into what they're thinking about. But 6th through 10th, I'm doing a lot with bringing in speakers, talking about employment and doing tours. So a lot of what JMG is doing in their classrooms, but this is anyone in the school can ask for this. So teachers will ask me to bring in speakers for the different classes. So there's a forensic psychologist who's coming in this month to talk to the criminal minds class at the high school. So that is often just a teacher reaching out and saying, hey, can you get a person like this to come into my classroom? I will have a lot more of that in the spring because that's when most of the classes that really know they want a speaker for some reason, spring is when they're meeting. I'm also doing a lot with integrated coursework. So you heard about the crime scene unit that happened last year where all the police cars were out and they had a person who had been hit and a bunch of different classes all got together. They're doing that again this year, but we're also doing PLGs, so the teacher professional development groups. We're doing 2 of those that are specifically for teachers who want to do integrated coursework, want to have interdisciplinary activities, and so I'll be able to help them to get the connections they need to be able to do some of those things, which is pretty exciting. And then this year we're going to start doing some Pride offerings. So the 2 Pride blocks on Wednesdays that there are now for students who don't need to do remediation, there are going to be enrichment offerings. And I'm sure you've probably heard about some of the enrichment offerings that are being offered. But we're going to be specifically bringing in some career speakers as well. So next month we're hoping to do an alumni and healthcare panel so that students can see what that looks like. The woman who's coming in to do a speaking thing for forensic psychology is going to be coming in to be able to talk to a larger group about that kind of stuff. So those are some speaking things that are going on. And then the employment things that I'm working on are really the exact same things that JMG is working on. Once again, it's just available to the entire student body, even if it's not their course. So those happen either during Pride blocks, or I have an 8th grade job skills course that I do that is, I'm doing this spring. It's just a half an hour Friday morning, so students who can't take the whole class can still have a few pieces to help them get better prepared. And a lot of this is done with Carrie as well, who does a lot of the job shadow, the resume writing and interview skills and things like that. And then we're doing a lot of tours this year, which is really exciting. Jordan Small did this last year and is doing it again, where they take their 8th graders to a bunch of businesses right in Wyndham, just groups of 5 to 10 based on their interest. That's happening in a couple months. We're also going to make use of the adventure van that I think was purchased like 3 years ago and is 2 years ago and is being used for adventure stuff like twice a week. But when it's not being used, they are wonderfully okay with us taking the van out for industry tours. So we're going to go to Sabre Yachts this month. We're going to go to Slaughterbeck and Foss. We're going to be going to probably to Wex or someplace like that. So going to different places and using the van because we can afford to do that and not get a bus, right? And it's only 6 or 7 kids, which is about how many we could safely know we're going to get for any industry tour. So that's really exciting. So that's all of the main buckets, and I went through that really quickly, but I just wanted you to have an overview of the things that are going on. And then I have this like other category, which is actually where a lot of time is spent. I do a lot with publicity, so I'm sure you saw a lot of articles in the Wyndham Eagle last year. Many of those I either worked on or I wrote to make sure that some of the really cool things that are happening in the district are really highlighted. And so that's going to continue to be a priority, is to make sure that we talk about the really cool things that are happening, and that as we talk about that, businesses and community members are reminded that there are other community members who are helping in these ways. There are businesses who are helping in these ways. So when I reach out to them, it's not a foreign idea that the community and the school work together. I told you I worked with the CED standards review. That has public comment goes until end of October. And then I don't know what the next step is. There's like 12 more, I'm sure. I work with, it's called the C3 team. I work with a group of about 30 people who have similar positions to mine in Southern Maine. And we get together once a month to really talk through what we're doing, what policies we use, what programs we have, what is working and isn't working, and all that kind of stuff. I'm in the ELE program, which Chris was in 3 years ago. So that's been really wonderful, meeting people throughout the state at a little bit of a higher level to be able to talk through what career shadow opportunities and internships and things like that are available to some of our students who are college bound. So really intentionally, that higher level, what are the options there, which is really cool. We're going to hear back about the COPS grant this month. It was supposed to be last month, but we haven't heard, but they say it's soon. If we get the grant, which hopefully we will, it's $500,000 towards school safety. So I'll let you know, hopefully in the next week or two, whether we got that.
That would be great.
That would be fantastic. And then more interdisciplinary work. There's going to be, from what I can feel with the high school, there's going to be a lot more interdisciplinary things happening this year and next, which is really exciting. And that is all that I have, except for your questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
Well, first of all, I'm pretty thrilled to have you on board in this position.
Thank you.
I think I'm a little overwhelmed by all the work that you're doing, and it all sounds fantastic. I do have a couple questions. I went to Capstone last year. It was the first gig. It was very exciting. The students, some of them had deer in the headlight, and some of them didn't. And I'm curious about the evaluation process that you're using, because I noticed there was a parent component there, and how are you fleshing that out to make it better? Not that it was bad, but to improve upon.
Are you talking about evaluating the projects themselves, or evaluating the whole
process?
Thing? Okay, the process. Yeah. So basically, what we've been doing is we've been talking about it in our like small group meetings about how that's working. I'm in meetings every week with student services, and then I'm also in the MELMAC meetings, and Carrie does the career fair, which is going to just by needs of finances, we get the tables on the same day, so the fair is there as well. And then talking with in the back group, which is the like teacher professional, like talking about how to make things better. We also talk about Capstone a decent amount there, and so those three places have been really good spaces to talk about how things are working. I think the biggest thing that was a struggle last year was just communication. And so really just talking, spending more time up front saying this is what the plan is, has really helped a lot in making it a lot easier, especially just, all right, what is it that the advisor, that's the person in the school building, is expected to do versus what is it that the community contact is expected to do, and what's the difference? And just changing the name to a community contact instead of a mentor. Now businesses aren't as freaked out about having to do that role. So because now their job is to simply be a contact point, and they feel like they can do that. They're doing the same exact work, but it feels different. The Capstone Fair, we're still talking about what exactly with the Capstone Fair specifically, how to structure it so that we can still have that opportunity for a lot of students to present at the same time. Just with 250, you need that opportunity, but also so that community members and parents can feel like they can come even if they have work. So we're toying with whether that needs to be an evening opportunity alongside a morning one, or what that will look like. So those are the main things, was like really how do we communicate to everyone earlier, and then the Capstone Fair at the end. The middle seems to go pretty well. Once kids get started, they can do most of it until the very end, and that feels pretty good to them. It's either end where we're having those conversations, and there's a few different places to have those, which has been nice.
Good. Well, it was impressive for a first round. I thought it was pretty impressive.
Wow.
If you don't mind, just a couple more. I'm going back to the mentoring program. and it's student-based. I'm wondering if there's any consideration, and I don't know if we have the capacity or if even there's community interest in an adult mentoring program.
We talked about it in the fall last year. There was a couple reps from Big Brothers Big Sisters who had talked about, well, we could have community members go through the program, and then we could have adults mentoring high school students, which would be really fantastic. We started to work towards that, and it just really wasn't gelling. Students were not interested in it. And so I think we're going to keep looking back to say, is it time yet? Are we ready yet to move to that? Because it's a really good opportunity, especially because with Big Brothers and Big Sisters, they would do the work. And so my role would really be publicity. And so that's a really easy add, as opposed to trying to expand just the high school and middle school program to 100 kids, which is a big add on me, whereas 100 kids in that program would be perfect. So it's a future thing, as well as middle school to elementary school. But right now, that the high school to middle school is just the easy win, and so that's where it's starting.
It's a nice first step.
Yeah.
And my final comment is, I really appreciate your outreach to our community. I think it's important that they hear from us that we don't always have the ability to contact people like you do, so they know the good work that's going on in our district, and I think that's really important. And to that end, I'm just wondering, is there any way that year end or something, can we do a thank you for like a general open house thank you to anyone who helped in the capstone or mentor or whatever, an acknowledgement, because I hear what you're saying and I'm so appreciative of community involvement, but some of these folks get tapped out. And I appreciate your cautionary tale that we can't keep knocking on the door of the same people over and over again. But I also think it'd be lovely if we could do some kind of acknowledgement at the end of the year for whether it's volunteers, which may be a whole different category, but community thank you. I think that would be really a nice way for the RSU to say thank you.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate what you've done and are doing.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay. Next is policies. Could I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the second reading of teaching about controversial sensitive issues, policy IMB.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All those in favor? No opposed? Okay.
I move to approve the second reading of evaluation of instructional programs, policy IL.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Next is Maine School Board Association resolutions. This is a discussion of these resolutions. These are proposed resolutions. We don't actually know what the final. They forwarded them for our consideration, but they might change. First is, and just let me say that in our discussion, we are discussing these so that the delegate will have.
That's really true.
We'll have some direction as to the board's pleasure. So the first resolution is staff use of social media. We will have a chance to vote on these next time, but if we have any discussion about this now. Giving you time to read.
Just for the boards, we do have a district policy on social media and how it's used and how staff interact with community and students. So we believe it's a good thing.
Yes. Okay. Anybody have any questions or concerns about this? We have a chance to. Okay. School board use of social media. Do we have a policy about that? I don't think so.
I think we've gotten multiple reminders from Augusta as to how, as school board members, we should react or not.
Right. I agree.
So this resolution is not proposing that there's a policy created. It's just saying that members should apply the same standards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Be mindful of discussions and quorums.
No, it isn't.
That you represent yourself, not. Okay. Now, legislative focus on students. This is, I'm not sure what the focus is, except that it wants to make sure that legislation always has the best interest of students as its focus. Okay. Now, board-teacher relations. And this is about education policy and their meet and greet and consult.
I think from a policy standpoint, if there's anything that impacts staff, we generally contact and get input.
Yeah, I think the important thing, the most important thing in this paragraph is the last sentence.
We also believe boards should create more avenues to provide teacher voice.
Yeah. I think if you talk to any teacher, they would probably say that would be their biggest thing. And hopefully we get that through administrators. But
well, I'm hoping that we do.
I think this
doesn't always happen.
Isn't this bigger issue the interest-based bargaining? Yeah, where teachers unions can try to bargain in policy changes in the contracts.
Yeah. Right, that's the biggest. I think this is a result of that.
And so what is the MSBA proposing? They're proposing that happens, right?
I think what they're proposing is that it's the fundamental responsibility of a board to adopt educational policy. I think what they're proposing is that the avenue for teachers to have voice is when policy is made, and that's the opportunity to be able to weigh in. So boards have the opportunity to, how are you engaging teachers when you're deciding policy, not, as you suggest, Pete, to have it bargained into contracts.
I'm not suggesting.
Yes. No, but as far as but as far as what this resolution's getting to,
yeah,
I think you're exactly right. It's in response to that.
Okay, and then there's another resolution submitted by MSAD 75 about CTE funding. So, okay, next week we'll vote on these, and I will, whoever the delegate is, will take it.
And do we vote by resolution, or do we vote on them as a whole?
I think we vote by resolution.
Good.
Okay. Sure. Okay. Can we have a request for a quick recess? So can we take a quick recess?
Sure.
All right. We're still on time. The next is the report of the secretary.
I move to approve the minutes of the September 4th, 2019 meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any more discussion?
All those in favor? No opposed? Okay.
I move to approve the minutes of the September 18th, 2019 meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any board discussion? All those in favor? Okay. I have the superintendent's report, please.
Sure, I have a couple things that I want to share with all of you folks as well as the community tonight. First of all, we're excited. I know I'd mentioned last meeting Greater Sebago Alliance, which is 11 different districts, actually soon to be 12 districts from across our area that are banding together for professional development as well as some common purchasing. They are, or we are, in conjunction with them, helping to sponsor a regional professional development day for some of our specialists who are singletons, and we have 134 staff from 11 districts who will be participating. So Wyndham High School is hosting all the choral teachers from across the Greater Sebago Alliance, and they'll be doing common professional development. Some of our art teachers are heading off to other districts. Some of our adventure phys ed people are heading to others. And it's a great way to make sure that all of our professional staff can receive some great high-quality professional development that's going to be meaningful to them on that day. But as of today, we had 134 staff from across that group that have done that. RSU 14 food service, which we know is absolutely fantastic, but I want to make sure that I get this right. All of our cafeterias have achieved the 2019 Let's Go Smarter Lunchroom recognition. Recognition program honors school lunchrooms that are implementing best practices that reduce waste and increase participation. Many of these low to no cost environmental changes help nudge students to make healthier choices, and reaching the status is no easy task. And so our RSU 14 food service program, as everyone knows, is absolutely fantastic, but now again being recognized for work they're doing to reduce waste and to get kids interested in food. Last Friday night, Christine Marge and I had a chance to go to Neighbors Helping Neighbors, their benefit night, and Deb McAfee, who's former principal here at Wyndham High School, who's on the committee, hosted a table for Christine and I, but fantastic night. I think they raised close to $40,000 for heating oil assistance. And it was a nice night seeing the community come together to support people. But if Deb's watching, big shout out to Deb and the work that she did helping to organize that. Today is National Custodian Day.
Yes, it is.
And so I didn't know that till this morning, but big thank you to all of our custodians in RSU 14. Number one, for the work they did over the summer and all the building projects that we were involved with in getting buildings prepared. But as I have the opportunity to travel to different schools around the state, our schools are cleaner, safer, things are taken care of better than any other schools around. And I'm proud of the work that they do. So really a big shout out to all our custodians, even those that are working right now to get classrooms ready for tomorrow. They're outstanding. And the last thing I want to share, Christine's going to share the Social Emotional Learning Committee. Got up and running yesterday, and Christine's going to give a little soundbite.
So stay tuned. There'll be more on November 20th when we report out, but we did meet yesterday. We've assembled a social emotional learning team with representatives from across the district, many stakeholders, so schools, district representatives, community, school board, making sure that many voices are at the table as we examine first the resources that we currently have, the background knowledge training, then working throughout the year on developing a vision of where we want to be years down the road, some long-term planning that aligns with our district strategic plan. So that was a wonderful first meeting. Initial conversations yesterday focused on cultivating resiliency, both with staff and with learners. How do you develop resiliency in a challenging world? We also took a look at the National Commission on Social, Emotional, and Academic Development, their executive summary report, and we broke into small groups and looked at the 6 recommendations. So those can support our work as a district, looking at whether or not we have all the components in place to really meet the social, emotional, and academic needs of all children. We had great examples tonight of children developing resiliency and those skills to prepare them out in the world. So we will be walking through these 3 phases and collaboratively developing a plan. We'll report back in November.
Thank you.
And just the last thing that I want to end on, we definitely share the same concerns that were shared with the community about what's happening with transportation. And in the time that I've been in public education, I cannot remember a time like this where so many people are going through our stopped and clearly stopped buses with lights on routes that have always been routes, and it's concerning. It's concerning the distracted drivers that are out there and the people that are just not thinking through their actions and putting our kids in harm's way. And so we are looking at what we can do. Some of the things as far as extended stop arms and even some of the camera pieces were pieces of legislation that were passed after the budget process had gone through. So we're looking at what we can do with existing. I reached out to Pete this afternoon. He may not have a chance to see his email about finance meeting, but how do we help fund some of these things within existing, and then what are we looking to fund in the future, especially for some of our higher risk routes on our busiest roads that getting people to stop is a huge priority, because the last thing that any of us want is one of our students harmed. And the other thing is that we don't want our drivers focusing on trying to catch plate numbers. Their job is to get kids to the bus safely and away from the bus safely. So we definitely hear the community. We share the exact same concerns, and we'll do everything that we can to make the improvements that we need to.
Chris, in your discussion tomorrow with Mike, are you going to review some of the troubled? The thing that struck me the most, and I know it's unavoidable in some instances, is that children having to cross from the opposite side over. And Egypt Road, apparently that occurs, and whether that route can be changed so that it's whatever.
Yeah, and just so people are aware, is that all of our routes, if you think about it, start at the beginning of the year. Infinite Campus inputs all the routes, all the students in Diversitran, all those routes are computer calculated. And then there's a component within the transportation policy that talks about bus stops and changes the bus stops and dangerous bus stops. As things are brought to our attention, and as Alyssa shared tonight, this seemed to be something that came as of yesterday. As things are brought to our attention, we evaluate those bus stops, and we look either to cluster stops, moving stops, or in this case, we may need to move the direction. Off the top of my head, I don't know the route in which that bus then leaves and then where else it goes.
No, I understand.
So what the impact, it may be some longer route times, it may be some other pieces, but I think we owe it to the community to take a look at how we can improve. Also curious myself, taking a ride with Mike and looking at some of the sight lines and some of the different places to do what we can do, because again, we want our kids to be safe. And just a reminder, a school bus is the safest way to go back and forth to school. Bus sitting up much higher, you're safer than in a car. So we want to continue to have kids riding the bus.
I've seen so much hair stride over
I'd be also curious, and I know this will be part of your investigation, but feedback from bus drivers, because they're the ones that are doing it day in and day out, and they might have some insight into, you know what, if we moved it here or whatever it is.
And I know some of our major roads, such as 302, there are times where buses are doing different pickups based upon, because we do want to reduce crossing. And typically it's the 2-lane roads where kids are crossing. But it sounds like Egypt and what's happening in Egypt.
Yep. Like the site, because I'm on 202, very flat road, and I don't think I've ever seen anybody go like this. So much visibility.
Yep. So we will do the best that we can to address this.
Thank you. Okay, committee reports.
Finance has not met, but we are scheduling a meeting. We should meet before our next meeting, next board meeting.
Facilities.
So facilities will be meeting to look at Bill Hansen, who shared with the board last time. All those final documents made it to Augusta on Monday with signatures. And so facilities will be reviewing all of those individual proposals and the final costs. So Bill's reaching out to Scott to set that up so that that group can take a look at all those and then make some final recommendations. And it will be a little bit of time before we get the opportunity to hear back whether or not any of our projects are funded.
Okay. Policies meeting on Monday. Yes, we did have a meeting. Before I do it, when I get the minutes from both the schools, I forward them to everybody. So if there's anything on them that when you see it, that you have a question, if you could shoot the question back. So I would have, you know what I mean? Because Chris and I attend those meetings, so that we can get an answer for anything that might have any question, concern around any of that.
Thank you.
And it was kind of slow in a way. It's the beginning of the year, thank God. Westbrook, now they have a current enrollment of 440, which is about the average for them. Wyndham students right now total 62, so we are up 10 from last year. Last year we were 52, and as everybody knows, that's our main school for technical schools. We have, which is I think great, for the 11th graders we have 18 males, 13 females. For the seniors, we have 17 males and 14 females, and those numbers are up.
Yeah.
So we have more females that are going, which is really great. And I think part of that is gauged on the fact that Westbrook always has that
Women in the Trades.
Women in the Trades program that people can go to. Paths, we are up, but only by 2. We have 26 students there. We had 24 last year. They're looking into consolidating some of their programs because some of their are changing the name. Some of their numbers are decreasing, and so they're investigating as to really are they in line with what's in the future. So they're looking out ahead to see, okay, what is going to be the business that they really should be keep training and teaching these kids to do, so that they really do have a job when they get out. So they have had to, like marketing, there is no marketing right now, but they found, well, I learned anyway at the thing, when your numbers are low, the schools can suspend a program for up to 3 years. After that, the state will mandate that you discontinue it. So they have 3 years to be able to beef it up. Or
what's the threshold
of what?
Like, what's the minimum?
It depends on the program. I think the smallest number is 6.
I think they usually shoot for 8 to 12 as a minimum
some
within
of
a
them,
program.
but some of the other ones, like in the social service, they took 6. So we'll wait and see what happens on that. Neither, this is a good thing, neither of the schools is going to be asking us for any money this year. They said between the grants and everything going on there and what they've gotten from, there's been the public and the grants have really covered everything. So our part 2, which is the capital, so there will be no request from either school for the capital. And as we all know, their part 1 is coming from the state now. And it's kind of funny because when we had the meeting, nobody wanted to vote on the Constitution and the bylaws, because in part of that was how we would split the cost of it. And so now it's the ED 279 that's doing it. So, and there was some conversation about holding off because they didn't know if that would last for more than 2 years, because we all know what Augusta is like, you know. But I guess we're going to change it. We are going to change that. The other thing, both the schools have put a group together and looking at, and it's kind of funny because they were talking about the co-oping and what I call co-oping of work-study programs and getting in line more with that. They do have some collaboration with businesses, but they don't really have any work study programs where the students are going to spend part of the year or part of whatever they're doing in that job and getting paid for it. And they think they need to get more of that hands-on, so they get a better feel for, is this really, because what you do in the class isn't necessarily what you're going to do when you get out into what the real job is going to be like. And I think that's kind of it for this meeting. But it was good, and they're really looking into how do they beef it up, you know what I mean, and how do they, between open houses and getting parents involved. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, location is everything. When you have Westbrook with 400, did you say 400?
440.
440 enrolled, correct?
Wait a minute.
Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, 440 are enrolled.
And we have 62.
The largest number in Westbrook is Westbrook.
Of course, because it's on site.
Right. I mean, it's
well. In
it's the
addition,
same thing
kids
with,
in Westbrook can take a single period course at the vocational center, not a full course.
Yep.
Which
So I
also
think-
means that they pay a
it's on my
greater
other piece of
percentage.
paper, darn it. They
Yeah,
have
it's hard to overcome that, to beef up numbers when you consider that our kiddos have to schedule their classes and then the transportation. I mean, that's
the transportation seems to be I think it's still the big thing. You know, when you're, and it's the fact, and the other thing that we haven't done, and I'm really surprised, is we haven't combined. I mean, like which way is Gorham coming? I mean, we're sending a bus. Gorham sends a bus. Everybody's sending. Do you know what I mean? Why are we not? But then again,
but it takes time for
is
Gorham
anybody
to get to here
that's
or whatever.
on what route are you going? Because the buses do go the back roads. They don't necessarily go down 302 to.
Now, when I read the minutes, did I read correctly that students are now allowed to drive themselves there?
So it's
Parking is very.
It's been the policy of Wyndham High School to only have seniors who to be able to drive. It's Westbrook has, I can't remember, it's 6 or 8 parking spaces reserved for Wyndham High School students, and not a lot of spaces there. So there are kids who still drive, and they're not allowed to drive others, but there are kids who still drive, and they park elsewhere in the city of Westbrook and then walk over.
But it's usually the kids that have jobs.
Right, and they're moving on to a job after.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So those are, I think they get preference if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
If a kid has a job that he has to get to, because it takes so long for the bus to come back.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And Pat's is no better for the parking. Take my word, we go to meetings there and we're parked in the driveway.
I went to workshops there.
Yes.
Okay, now we have an opportunity for the board roundtable. And as you remember, I'm not going to go. You have to raise your hand if you have something. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I'm wondering about the not absences, the openings that we've had for ed techs, and whether we have hired all the folks that we need to hire.
We've not hired all the people that we need to hire. And Lisa's Garneau, Director of Student Services, will be putting something in your board packets on looking at possibly combining a couple of tech positions into a teaching position, taking the funding that's there, and she'll give you a description of that in order to look at regrouping some kids to meet the needs. But we've moved ed techs around the district to make sure that programs and IEPs are being met. It's not optimal at the moment. I think when we last discussed, we had 7 open positions at the moment, and without applications.
I know. I thought it was great that I saw in the paper on Sunday had an ad that it blew me away the number of openings they had for ed techs. I mean, it was astounding. Well, it sounds like we could have put our name up there. It would have been the same.
Right. So as we approach negotiations, we are in competition with a number of other districts in our area, and everyone in our area is experiencing the exact same issue with ed techs, bus drivers.
This is serious.
Yep, it is serious.
Actually, I would like a recommendation. as everybody knows, we have the backpack program at RSU, and that is the food that goes home for some students every weekend. And the program is fine, and there's a great group of volunteers, and we've been doing this for quite a few years now. And I'm looking for suggestions. I would like to get these volunteers recognized. You don't have to like jump in now, but if somebody I just can't figure out a way to do it.
Well,
it's a big number of people.
One thing we've talked about with the rewrite of the volunteer policy, and this was something that happened in both districts prior to consolidation, there was a year-end recognition of service for our volunteers, and it was, I think in the old days, it was held at either Jordan Small or Wyndham Middle School. I would say old days, 10 years ago. It was held in those locations, and that's something that we talked about bringing back and inviting all of our volunteers across the RSU, recognizing them, whether it be with a small gift or certificate or something else, because you're right, there's a number of kind of unsung heroes behind the scenes who are doing a lot of work in the RSU, in which they're benefiting and we're benefiting, and we need to recognize them.
And I wanted to thank Chris. He came to our packing and he just dove right in there. You're a great double bagger.
Wow. Put that on your resume.
Yes, sir.
I would just like to say that it's homecoming week at the high school. So they've been having Spirit Week, and the kids have been getting into it. It's fun dropping my kids off and seeing all the students as they're walking into the high school dressed up in their various themed costumes. And so there's going to be a lot of home sports games this coming weekend. So the schedule should be available on the RSU 14 website. So come on out and support your athletes, support the school.
I was there yesterday, and I saw children wearing. I just walked in and somebody was blue, and all blue, and they had, like blue, and with I can't remember. Anyway, so I just walked by, thinking, I wonder if they, is there something special going on? I'm glad to hear that it was for me.
They had Character Day, they had Sports Day. Today everybody was wearing pink. I'm not sure what the other 2 days were.
Good school spirit.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? All right. Then, could I have a motion to go into executive session, please?
I move to approve going into executive session to discuss withdrawal negotiations pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 405(6)(c) and not return to regular meeting.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Okay, we are.